Thank you so much, Jordan. My name is Tristan Brown. I'm the Illinois Operations Manager for Justine PETERSEN. And our main motto is building assets, changing lives. And today we're going to be talking about starting your business. So Justine PETERSEN, who are we? Well, Justine PETERSEN was a real person. She was a social worker in the 70s and 80s out of the St. Louis metro area, and that's where our company is based out of, St. Louis. She worked with mainly low-income minority individuals / families on finding capital and finally finding that end goal of home ownership. And she heard the same issues over and over again about not finding institutional resources or being denied from institutional resources and not having any other resources to go to. So those are really the pillars on what our company is built on. And we're a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. We're an SBA microlender, and we're a HUD certified counseling agency, meaning we do all of the prior education to the home ownership aspect. We've got 25 plus years of history. We started in 1997. We've deployed over $240 million during that time and helped over 13,500 businesses throughout Missouri and Illinois. We're the #1 SBA microlender in Illinois and actually just won Microlender of the Year in the state of Illinois last week through the SBA. Our work in Champaign County so far, we've deployed $1.2 million in commercial capital since January 1st of 2023. Probably closer to 1.3 million now. We partnered with the local Black Chamber, the local Small Business Development Center. I'm housed in the Economic Development Center of Champaign County, located on South Neal, and the city of Champaign. We also work with Business Elevator, which is also a business development organization. We have multiple bank investment partners also within the Champaign assessment area, including Busey Bank and PNC. So today I'm going to be talking about a little bit about how to start a business, how your personal credit comes into play, what business credit is, and kind of the differences between being a DBA, LLC, and a corporation. Just the basics. So the importance of maintaining a competitive personal credit score. First of all, there's 3 main credit bureaus. There's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. We pull from TransUnion for most of our business loans. Whenever you go in for a mortgage, they will pull from all 3 and take the middle score. The reason to have a competitive credit score, of course, is to have lower interest rates, which frees up monthly capital that you are able to then use for whatever you'd like, starting a business or your savings. And obviously, with the higher credit score, you get a higher approval rate on your vehicles, credit cards, and mortgages. Personal credit and starting your business. Business owners are usually used as guarantors when applying for commercial financing. A guarantor is a representative given authority to sign on behalf of the business, meaning that you are signing for the business. You are most likely partial ownership of the business, and you know that this is going to be for business use. When applying as a small business, the majority of the time, the credit analysis is based off the guarantor's personal credit, which then again wraps around on why it is so important to have your personal finances in place first before going in and moving forward with your great idea. Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk numbers, like about that credit score. What does it look like? Really competitive, you know what I mean? So I know it's like...
We like to see at least a 640. Well, so whenever it comes to mainstream institutions, before we send you off to mainstream institutions, we like to see a 640. Okay. When working with us, for the smaller dollar loans, we like to see at least a 580. For the larger dollar loans, we like to see at least a 620. But if you aren't at that part yet, we also do wraparound services with our credit building services, and we will get you to that point. It just takes a little more work. Yeah. And so whenever it comes to business credit, there are usually 3 main bureaus: Duns & Bradstreet, Equifax again, and Experian again. Any business with an FEIN should be looking into applying for a DUNS number. Duns & Bradstreet is the main business bureau reporting on a score out of 100. The reasoning why you want to get a DUNS number, especially if you're In the retail industry, you use any third party or you're filling any invoices. Whoever you're filling that invoice with and you give them that Duns and Bradstreet number, they will start reporting to that bureau. Most of the time, they have the authority to report to that bureau, and you will start generating business credit offhand like that. Score is based on how reliably the business has fulfilled invoices and financial obligations with vendors or suppliers. And to establish business credit, the business must receive a DUNS number, then register that number through the SAMS database, www.sam.gov. You will be provided an ID number, which then you will pass on. Another important aspect of going in and applying for a business loan, you're going to need cash flow and projections. Even if you don't have cash flow yet, you're going to need really good projections and really detailed projections. And now what does that look like? Well, every time you purchase some sort of product for your business, you do the math, pretty much, is a good summary of it. You come in, your math is right, and it shows like, this is how I'm going to move forward, and this is how I'm going to progress in bringing in more cash flow, even if your marketing isn't there yet. Projections includes the next 3 months, fiscal year, and next 3 years of business activity, showing projected profit margins and expenses. Projections usually used to determine approval for potential startups, as discussed before. Cash flow includes any financial transactions that have already occurred through the business and reflect detailed expenses showing profit and loss margin through a P&L. And another very important aspect of applying for any sort of business financing is the end-all business plan. This shows the mission, explanation of operations, and will contain your projections and analysis of the future operations of the business, showing why your business will succeed.
Hold that for 1 second.
Yeah,
Slide.
go back.
No, the one you were just on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I can't stress enough how important a business plan is. And you have resources in Champaign that will help you through a business plan here at the library and at our local Small Business Development Center.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, and then you will also have to show your personal financial history, especially with starting a startup. So W-2 employment is always recommended. I get clients all the time, I'm gonna start my business and immediately quit my job. Well, that doesn't usually work out right. And so I always advise keeping your W-2 employment for at least 6 to 12 months of the first year of operation to kind of feel out what your expenses are going to be, especially whenever it comes to the personal side and especially whenever it comes to your owner's draw. Tax returns, they usually require at least the last year of personal tax returns when starting a startup, maintaining a positive personal transaction history, credit score, and the amount of cash on hand or startup capital. Now the FEIN, when starting, this is your first step when starting a business, once you've already got your ideas and planning in place. So FEIN, Federal Employer Identification Number, it's registered through the IRS website. Basic terms, serves as the social security number for your business. It's how they can track if you've been filing your taxes or not. When filing business taxes or Schedule Cs, this is used as tracking. Also used if hiring employees for their personal W-2. If you went back at last year's W-2 and looked at the W-2 from your employer, you will see an FEIN on there. And it is heavily advised for all businesses to have an FEIN, even if you're a sole proprietor.
Hold that for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So what's Schedule C's?
Business tax returns, but except for it's included in your personal tax returns because you're not an S corp, you're not a C corp. Well, I guess you could be an S corp. You're not big enough.
Like, can you go forward?
Sorry.
You got a little.
Yeah. Sorry. You're not big enough yet to file your own business taxes, I guess is what. You still have that option to file it with your personal tax return.
Okay.
Schedule Cs are found within your personal tax returns usually. Now you're really testing my knowledge. I don't really know the tax form whenever it's.
No, just all very new.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And this usually shows your profit and loss there. So it shows all of your expenses. Like let's say you spend $2,600 on advertising, it'll have that in there. It'll show what you made that year, if you have a gross profit or not, that kind of stuff. You good to go? For sure. All right, and a lot of people ask, should I start off as a sole proprietor, LLC, or a corporation? And it really all depends on what you're trying to do with your business and how big you want it to go. So a DBA, also referred to as a sole proprietorship, is a type of business owned and operated by one person. Excuse me. An example in here, Dale cuts grass and wants to assume a business name, but does not plan on hiring any other employees and plans on keeping this as a local activity, side hustle. It would be an example of a DBA, Dale Cuts Lawns. That would be his business name. He could make a sign with it. It would be Dale Cuts Lawns, and he registers that through the county. And I specifically have the Champaign County Clerk on here, located in Urbana at the Brookings Administrative Center. And that is a good place to start. Once you get your FEIN, you go and file an assumed business name is what it's called. And they run your name in the paper, and there you go. You should be receiving your business license soon after. And then you would register for an FEIN under your assumed business name, whatever business name that you were going to choose. And then you would receive a letter from the IRS with that business name on there with the EIN connecting it. And then an LLC, limited liability company, is a type of business ran and owned by its manager or members. This can also be a single owner and operator, but has been registered by the state as a structured business entity. Example, Dale cuts grass and wants to assume a business name, does plan on hiring a couple of his buddies and putting them on the payroll and going into business with a friend. This would be a perfect example of when to start an LLC. Business name example, Dale Cuts Lawns LLC. And then you would go to the, you would go register your FEIN through the IRS website, and then you would go online through the Illinois Secretary of State website. And it's pretty straightforward once you get on the Secretary of State website. They have a business tab on there, and you can go and file an LLC. And I think it's $150. Now here it comes to my next point too. There are a lot of services out there that want you to pay to start a business and do all of this for you. And sometimes it's an astronomical amount, like $300 whenever if you did this, plus the $150 fee for registering. So, and I see it all the time too. So I just want to warn against that these are free services. You can file an FEIN for free. And the LLC will cost you through the state. And it'll be an annual fee to keep that active as well.
You know what the annual fee is?
It's around it's $150, the same as the activation. And it'll come due on the date that you originally activated. And so there are, I'm going to go through the main differences between an LLC and a corporation. So two types of corporations. There's an S Corp and a C Corp. A good way to think about it is an S Corp is a single corp. So I've seen individually owned businesses become an S Corp just for tax purposes. And this is shareholders are limited. Taxes are only paid on profits. This is the main thing that I want you to pay attention to. Taxes are only paid on profits received through the business. On an S Corp, which in a C Corp, taxes are paid on both business income and profits, and usually filed on behalf of a larger entity. Think of an Amazon, would be a C Corp. The advantages of this is where you get itemized deductions. So once you become an S Corp, once your business graduates from an LLC to a corporation, you can do the single deductions.
You can't really do that too much on the LLC.
Yeah, they're usually grouped together. Like, let's say you buy a $45,000 piece of equipment. You could still, let's say you buy a $15,000 piece of equipment. At the end of the year on an LLC, it would be $60,000 total. But then you can itemize, like, this piece of equipment was $45,000 and write that off. Sorry, I'm getting clicky again. And then that kind of thing. So that's what it means by itemized deductions, is not as a group.
Right, it's a little bit.
It's more detailed, I guess. And
So you definitely need to get a accountant.
exactly, that's the number one thing whenever you become a corporation. And that's usually what I advise whenever an LLC comes to me and they're ready for that next step. Get a CPA. And then business decisions are usually based on a shareholder voting method. That is the main difference between an LLC and a corporation too. You usually see corporations, think of it as the stock market, you sell shares. So let's say you have an investor for your company. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot.
So you're just knocking things.
I am. But let's say you have an investor for your company and you sell them shares, you become an S Corp and sell them 500 shares and you only have 1,000 shares. Like, they are now 50% owner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And same steps to take as an LLC to establish. You file your corporation through the state, and you receive a document called the Articles of Incorporation. And the difference between documentation between an LLC and a corporation, the corporation will have something called a bylaws statement, and an LLC is an operating agreement. And these two documents are extremely important whenever it comes to the structure of the organization, because it pretty much labels who the boss is, who the main owners are. Like, you would find the shareholders in the bylaws, and you would find the percentage of ownership in the operating agreement. And that's the number one thing that I see with small businesses that are starting out. They're missing an operating agreement. So just keep that in mind too. And it's always best to consult a lawyer who has experience in business law too, if you have the means to generate your operating agreement. And then now I'm going to focus more on Justine PETERSEN and what we do. So our services in Champaign County currently include small business lending, microloans up to $50,000, SBA Community Advantage for the more distressed areas, for the more established businesses up to $250,000. And then we also have comprehensive credit building products, as I stated earlier, up to $3,000, which we use for credit building purposes, cleaning up debt, turning old bad debt into good debt is what we call it, and generating those on-time payments and those new better credit. And I'm housed at the local economic development center, as stated before. And then it says questions, but then I'm gonna go through our different loan products here just real quick.
Okay. Can you,
Yeah.
back over the last page?
Yep. And so we've got our SBA microloan product, and I'm really just going to go through the terms because I've already gone through that, but the rates usually are between 7.25 and 11%. It's up to 84 months with a 3% closing fee and usually 100% collateralization requirement, depending on the circumstance. Do we all know what collateral means in here? Collateral is usually some sort of equipment, some sort of vehicle, some sort of real estate, some sort of asset that could hold the value of the loan, saying, I'm willing to put this up for the loan if like worth $13,000, if you're willing to give me $13,000 for it, if that makes sense. So if you have a car worth 20, you could probably get a loan for up to 20. And like I said, up to 84 months. And the payments usually vary obviously depending on the loan size. We do have a special contractor loan fund if there are any contractors in here. That goes up to $150,000 with no interest rate, and it's usually a 90-day to 180-day term, so 3 to 6 month term. And there's only a 6% loan origination fee on it, which is huge for contractors who don't have the capital for a job up front and are looking to get paid on the back end.
And what's that called?
It's called the contractor loan. It's just a contractor loan fund.
Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah, so contractor loan fund up to $150,000, and it's 0% interest rate, but it's only a 3 to 6 month term. And it's a 6% closing fee. So let's say you get $10,000, we would take 6% of that off the top. So $600. So that would be the only fees involved with the loan, as long as it's paid back within that term. And that is huge for, I've had a couple of contractor startups that started working with the city of Champaign. They didn't really have the startup capital up front, and we were able to provide that. And then we got paid on the back end by the city after the contracts were finished. Other than that, let's hit the questions for sure. Yeah.
What's the difference between a FEIN and just an EIN?
It's just short for
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Still an employer identification number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I registered through a state and it gave me an EIN, then I have one?
Yeah, and then it's an FEIN. Yeah, it's a federal employer identification number. And there are, yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
most of the money I'm making right now, I'm like keeping.
Yeah.
Because I need to buy things and live.
Yeah.
I guess it's not really a question, but is that okay? What do I do? Do I still note down? I note down what I make, what I take out. Is that?
Yes, exactly. Just keep track of it
Okay.
for your taxes at the end of the year, especially since it sounds like you're sole proprietorship. Yeah, for sure.
LLC is what I have it registered.
Oh, okay. Well, then perfect then. Well, that's even better. So at the end of the year, are you keeping track on?
My taxes too. I write off so much stuff on my
Exactly. But how specific are you keeping track of it? Pretty specific then?
I have a Google folder with all my receipts in it.
Okay, well that's good enough. You give it to do you have an accountant or an H&R Block person? You just bring it at the end of the year?
TurboTax. Do it.
You bring it at the end, or you do it at the end? Okay, well, there you go. If you want to put in the time for that, for sure.
So when you're a small business and you are needing to get health insurance and your work car insurance, how are you putting that into place when it comes to your finances?
I'm sorry. So whenever you're trying to get commercial insurance for your business, where do you put that in place, in order of importance?
If you're just a one-person show.
So if you're a one-person show, it's also depending on what services you provide, but I would almost argue that you most likely wouldn't need commercial insurance yet. Unless it's some sort of medical.
Right, so what kind of insurance is there out there? Because long time ago when I was part of the Illinois Arts Council, they had at their conference, they had there was insurance for artists out there somewhere in which you had health insurance, obviously, because some people are metalsmithers and that's what they do.
Yeah.
And so there was health insurance in a group manner. And I would just wonder, do small business owners have that kind of maneuverability in the insurance that your small business businesses who are wanting to do some sort of group insurance feeling? I don't know.
I have never heard of anything like that, and I mean, if we were one-on-one right now, I'd probably advise you that that seems a little risky to me, because what happens whenever somebody doesn't come up with their premium? But I don't know the way that would work, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everybody talks
No, that is very interesting though. On like,
how that if it doesn't exist, that's kind of surprising. Because I was under the, and like I said, this was like years and years and years
Sure.
before Obamacare, before, you know, people were like really looking at their big.
yeah, before the more resources came about. Yeah,
Before you had your businesses sit down with all their employees and said, this is how our health insurance works, right? So we're talking like many, many years ago.
yeah,
And one of the things that they had mentioned for the artists was, you're able to get health insurance by doing this and this and this. So at the time, it's like goes over my head because, you know, I wasn't there yet.
yeah.
You know,
Sure. Well, and if you're asking, I mean, I work with small businesses all the time that do have, they're up to 3 employees that do purchase the commercial insurance. And it's usually about like between 1,500 to 2,500, upwards to 3,000 sometimes, depending on what you want to be covered for. So, in my experience, it's usually the individual business that gets it though. So that group aspect is very interesting to me. And I wonder how they managed that, or if there was someone managing a pool of money.
yeah, like I said, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I know that it was just like your presentation
Yeah.
here. There was someone who came and did a presentation
Yeah, sure.
about how artists could get health insurance and in the maneuverability that they were doing that, which, like I said, was
Yeah, yeah. It might have been, it also could have been like a special program that was currently going on at that time. I don't know. Yeah,
I know, but you know, I figure
sure.
put it out there to see what,
Yeah,
and if it's not there, why isn't it there?
that's a good question. Any other?
Yeah, I'm just, talk about like the kind of like loans you would suggest by like the difference between LLC and corporation or,
Well, the loan size doesn't really,
well, which of the services would really like work for, if you're thinking of LLC? Not necessarily the size, but you had a couple of offerings, right? And so one I was only able to write about, which was the contractor loan fund.
yeah.
And then what were the other ones that you spoke about?
Okay, so the SBA, so it's all umbrellaed underneath a microloan. So a definition of a microloan is up to $50,000.
Photographic for him?
Nope. It's okay.
You won't be able to see your face, so. I put rainbows and stuff over it. Is that okay? Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, so definition of a microloan, up to $50,000 with the max term of 84 months.
So what are you using the photographs for?
My businesses.
I get that, so why do you need our photographs?
Well, it's not, you're not gonna be able to tell it's you, like, put stuff over your
You
face.
can see
Right,
photographs as long as it's not disruptive or it doesn't make it uncomfortable.
It's for all my small businesses.
Sure.
Sorry for being intimidating.
All right, yeah. So again, I mean, the main terms, up to 50,000, up to 84 months, 7 years. If you go past the 5,000 mark, it has to be collateralized by something,
Right.
business equipment, blah, 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 blah. But usually with the start, I mean, we are the bread and butter for startups, especially whenever you're starting off as a mom and pop or needing, like, I had somebody want to start out catering, so we got her a cart that had like she was able to display all of her goods. And that was a $1,500 loan right there, uncollateralized, monthly payment, less than $100. And that's really where we start from the ground up, is that small relationship builder loan. Give you the money, see what you can do with it. And once you show 3 to 6 months of payment history, or like let's say you come back after 2 months and show, extensive cash flow, then we'd be able to obviously do more and what we call it is our step-up loan program. So we start off with a relationship builder loan, and we can go up. I've had clients go from $1,500 businesses to the 50,000 mark. So.
Right, that's exactly what I think I'm asking, because, if you're specifically looking for something, say you need to buy a certain type of computer or
Exactly.
certain equipment to get, to take your.
I had an after-school academics business one time who taught students. It was an after-school program, and she bought 8 laptops through us, $10,000 loan, that kind of thing. So there are definitely tons of avenues to explore with this program, especially for startups, because you don't really need that experience or the 2 years of cash flow model. So, yeah, go for it.
I came in late, so I missed a lot.
Yeah.
What that is, so we don't associate me with that. But do you custom tailor to the business, like the type of business? Does it like say for instance, if I own 2 businesses,
Sure.
right, and I'm looking to get funding for both, is like would I come to you?
We would take one at a time.
Right, but and you custom tailor for each different type of.
Specifically, yeah, absolutely. So like, let's say,
So that's what I'm asking.
yeah, let's say you qualify for $1,500 for one and qualify for like 20 grand for the other. That's possible. I've had people before, they're strictly self-employed, and they've gotten strictly self-employed through a real estate business, let's say. And they've gotten a $50,000 loan to purchase a different home for a rental property, and then they've come back and they're like, well, I actually created this other side gig where it's a retail business, and I've done a $3,000 loan for that kind of thing. Yeah,
And that's my thing, like
Exactly.
I have a telecommunications company, but I'm trying to open something different as well, and they're 2 totally different things. So because I missed the whole introduction.
absolutely.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah.